Good morning, everybody. Delighted that so many of you logged in this morning for the first in our series of webinars coinciding with the current COVID-19 crisis. For those that don't know me, my name is Aidan Shine. I'm CEO of Southeast BIC. And this morning, as I said, in the first of our seminars, we're going to be looking at business modeling in a crisis. The business model canvas is something that those of you of our clients who are logged in this morning will know that we use quite extensively in our interactions with clients. We feel it's a very, very powerful tool in getting to the core of what a business model is. And it's something we encourage our startup clients and existing clients to use on a regular basis to kind of go back to basics and look at the business model and see what's working and what's not working. So this morning we're just going to keep you for 45 minutes. That's the promise. Everybody's under the cosh, so we won't keep you too long, but 45 minutes, depending on the number of questions we have from you guys as we go along. And we want to make it as interactive as possible. So we're going to have a series of polls. Siobhan Oates, my colleague, is in the background here, pulling all the strings. And Siobhan intermittently would post some polls for you to interact with as we go through the session. We'd also encourage you to type in your questions as they occur to you during the session as well, and we can interrupt Rosemary and Rory as we go along with those questions, and we can also hold on to some for the end as well at the end of the session. So we're delighted to have Rory O'Connor with us. Rory is a long-standing client of the BIC. He's the CEO of Wexford-based Scurri. Scurri connects and optimizes online ordering, shipping and delivery. And Rory is quite evangelical about the business model canvas and using the business model canvas. And I hope some of that passion will come across today in our interaction with Rory on our webinar this morning. So I suppose how it's going to work is that our colleague Rosemary Ward and Rory are going to run the session on the actual business modeling, introduce you to the concept of what the business model canvas is and how it's used and how effective it can be. And as I said, we're not trying to make it like a lecture. We're trying to make it as interactive as possible. So do please type in the questions as they go along, and we will interrupt Rosemary and Rory with those questions, because as I said, we want to make it as meaningful as possible to everybody who's attending here today. Delighted to see we've got a lot of our clients signed up and some new people that we don't know, so we're looking forward to interacting with you as well. So as I said, there will be some questions and answers at the end of the session that we can tidy up on as well, and then in the wrap up I'll give some outline of the remaining seminars that are coming up in our series over in the next few weeks. So I won't spend any time really on the BIC. Just I know a lot of you online know us and who we are and what we do, but for those of you that are new to us, I'll just spend 2 minutes. We're the Southeast BIC. We're a network of 4 BICs in Ireland, part of a network in Cork, Galway and Dublin. We're a not-for-profit organisation, and we work with startups and innovative SMEs in the Southeast region in particular. We get most of our funding from Enterprise Ireland to work with innovative startups. So the whole range of services that we provide all lead to securing some type of investment, be that public investment, for example, high potential startup funding from Enterprise Ireland, or private equity investment from the Halo Business Angel Network, which we manage here in the Southeast as well. So our whole reason for being, I suppose, is that we interact one-to-one with clients. We work intensively on a one-to-one basis with clients, and that is everything from taking somebody with an idea right through to investor readiness and securing investments. So it can be quite a long journey, albeit an intensive one. Other clients come in and they're further down the road, and we might be working with them just purely on investor readiness. So I would encourage you to have a look at southeastbic.ie to get the whole story rather than listen to me waffle on for any much longer. We're open for business. We're working remotely, and we want to help existing clients and new clients in any way we can to get through this particular crisis. So what I might do now is I might hand you over to Rosemary, and Rosemary will take the next part of the session with Rory.
So good morning all. We are here this morning to talk about business modelling in a crisis. Delighted to have Rory with us, who's the expert on all things business modelling and knows an awful lot more than the rest of us put together about the practicalities of making a startup scalable and repeatable. So this is a tool, as Aidan mentioned, that we use all the time. We use all the time with our clients, but it's more relevant now than ever. And so I want to bring you through the ins and outs of it in a very short space of time, but then call on Rory to talk about the practicality of using it in the current environment. So I'm going to give you a quick intro into it. This is a slide that we put up all the time, but it's actually more and more relevant today than it is ever before. So a startup is a temporary organization used to search for a repeatable and scalable business model. And the word temporary makes an awful lot of sense at the minute, because some of the solutions and the changes that people are going to have to make at the moment are temporary, and some of them may have more lasting impact or more lasting effect in the long run. So Steve Blank was very accurate in his view about how we're going to get through this, even though he wasn't thinking about a pandemic at the time. So how do we do it, or what do we use? We use a thing called a business model canvas, which was developed by a guy called Osterwalder a number of years ago. And it breaks down a business model into 9 key components. So it effectively communicates how a company creates value and how it resources itself in order to create that repeatable, scalable business model. And the likes of Rory and Scurri have been using the business model canvas from the beginning. But I suppose today I want to ask Rory maybe to give, we're going to go through a little bit of the theory, but maybe Rory, you might put in context how Scurri have started looking at this again. I know you use it all the time, but this in the current environment and for what you're facing at the minute.
Yeah, Rosemary, I think we've used the business model canvas from the beginning, and don't let it fool you. A one-pager business plan sounds like the ideal solution, but actually to get everything down into those kind of 9 squares makes kind of for very hard work. I think it was Abraham Lincoln said, I wanted to. I didn't have time to write a short letter, so I wrote a long one, and it's kind of along this kind of a line. It's very easy to write down lots of stuff in the business plan and kind of fluff it out. If you want to get everything into the 9 component squares, you have to think really hard and deeply about it. So we have used the business model canvas way back when we came to you in the first instance. I think we put it up on the wall and started using it back 10 years ago. And we're now going through a process of looking at ideation and what does the new environment bring for us. And while we're doing that, what we do is put up all the ideas, we rank and score the ideas, and then we put them into the business model canvas to see how did they impact on the business model. And I think that's just really important to do, because if you change something, say for instance you go to another set of partners, how does that impact on your existing partners, and how does that flow through the rest of the business model canvas? And that's what the tool is really handy and effective for.
Yeah, I think Rory's hit the nail on the head there, and we'll see how it interacts now in the next couple of slides. So the canvas itself is broken into 4 areas. It's the what, it's the bundle of products and services that create value, the value proposition, the solution to the problem effectively, which is the center of the canvas. On the right hand side then it's the who, it's the customer segments, the people that your company aims to reach and serve, the routes by which you plan to reach and serve them, and then the relationship that you're going to create to maintain those revenue potential streams. It's the how then, the configuration of the resources, the competencies, the partners, the activities, the what you physically do and how you make it and how you do it over on the left-hand side, more the internal side of the canvas. And then down the base of the canvas, you've got the costs and you've got the revenue streams. So we'll run through each of those briefly, piece by piece. And we're going to do a couple of polls with you guys to see what your thoughts are on each of these as we go through. But as Rory pointed out, when you tweak or change any one element on the canvas, it's important to see how that cascades across the rest of the canvas. So if you change the customer segments that you're targeting, which people are doing at the moment, or if you're changing the channels that by which you're communicating and selling to people, which people are very much doing at the moment, what impact does that have on your potential revenue stream or your costs? So that's the benefit of the canvas, is that it is that kind of a dynamic instrument that you can see what impacts and knock-on effects it will have. So the first segment that we generally look at is the people with the problem or the need or the want, because without the people with the problem, need or want, then really you don't have a business. So it's identifying for whom you have chosen to create the value, who is the typical customer, what they're looking for, and knowing exactly who they are. And in a business-to-business setting, it sometimes is quite easy to identify who exactly they are and get their names and their addresses of the decision makers and get all that information. Much trickier in a business-to-consumer setting. So I'm going to ask you to do a poll, and then we'll just throw it over to Rory and see how that might have impacted on them. We're going to throw up the first poll, Siobhan. So since this crisis has started, have you or your team identified a new segment or segments to target for your product or service? So Rory, has that been something that Scurri has had to do or wants to do or has seen an opportunity to do at the moment?
Yeah, it has, and we haven't resolved that one yet. But for instance, so what we do is we have a piece of software for shipping. It allows online retailers really to kind of pick the right shipping method. So it could be a courier or pick up in store or whatever. And we generally we're very focused on our segments. UK segment, mid-market, 10 million to 100 million, not a new business, at least 2 years in existence. We have all the criteria. However, what we're seeing is that as new people move into online, maybe they haven't been in online before, there's a huge increase in the use of third-party logistics operators, what are called 3PLs. The 3PLs are a different segment, which our product and our marketing and that is not probably targeted towards at the moment, but we would need to do some kind of tweaks to actually target that segment. So we're looking at the 3PL segment as opposed, and probably in conjunction with our traditional segment that we're targeting at the moment. So then you have to flow that right through the business model canvas to see what needs to be done to target that segment.
Okay, I think that's a very good example of how the crisis is throwing up opportunity, but it's also throwing up the problems that it potentially will have then internally, as in scaling up from a marketing perspective or funding the marketing that needs to be done in order to go after a whole new market in a very short space of time. And this is what we're trying to help you with, so that you create a tool that you can work that out.
And Rosemary, can I just come in there? Can you hear me? Yeah. No, it just occurred to me on a practical level, then using the tool that that Rory mentioned there, that some customers, their new customers have kind of arrived or have been augmented in terms of the crisis, and other customers maybe might have fallen away. Is it a case then you take the canvas for each of those segments and kind of work through the effect, good or bad, using the canvas per segment?
I've done both, Aidan. I put both segments on and tried to show the two of them one together on the canvas. And what we've also done different canvases for both. It depends really on how complex the business is as to whether you need two separate canvases or you can do them all on one canvas.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Rory.
So we'll get the results of that in a minute, and we'll see what people have been saying about their own. The value proposition, which is the central element, is the bundle of value that you create for the customer. And we're always talking about how there has to be some level of a problem, need or want in order for you to create a solution. And we talk about using the words of the customer here. And at the moment, the value proposition, depending on if you change that customer segment, for in the case of Scurri looking at the 3PL market as opposed to the online guys themselves. I know you're going after both, but you will have to change your value proposition then in order to sell to those new customers, because they may have a slightly different perspective on their problem, or they might have a slightly different need from a solution perspective. Have you guys started to tweak that value proposition, Rory?
Yeah, well, I think I suppose what we've learned over the years is this is probably the key thing, is the value proposition, how you talk to those customers. So, I mean, that's what we're looking at now as we kind of flush through the various ideas to the business model canvas. But yes, like if you're talking to 3PLs, so their customers are retailers whose customers are the consumers. So there's another layer in there. So you need to talk to 3PLs about their customers and, you know, dealing with business to business rather than business to consumer. So it's a different level, and you need to be able to talk in that kind of language. So the language for 3PLs is more about cost effectiveness. It's about, you know, getting efficiency, stuff like that, where retailers might be thinking more about lifetime value and things like that. So it's just a different language that you need to be thinking about.
Yeah, I think that they're really important to identify that you may have the same value proposition, you may be offering the same bundle of products and services, but how you communicate them to the people who have a slightly different problem or a different view of the world is up to you to sort that out. You know, it's up to the company.
To tie into that, Rosemary, we have some questions coming in from the audience. One question, I suppose, just to go back a little bit on customer segment. What and when is the best way to reach out to businesses in a new segment?
I'd say when you've done your business model canvas and you know what you're doing.
Okay.
Yeah, I think once at the moment we don't have an awful lot of time. Like if you're reaching out to new segments because of the new change in the opportunity, there isn't a huge amount of time. That's why I think companies have to act fast. That's why the likes of the business model canvas is useful, that you can flush through those ideas fairly quickly in order to, and then go out and test it with a small number of that segment. It's not ever going to be perfect, and the customer's feedback is always going to be the best. I think that would be your advice, would it, Rory?
Absolutely. I think that's what you've got to do. But I think you've got to think it right through. It's very easy to rush out to a new segment and just forget about that. You know, the segment, you know, you need to talk to them in a different language, and maybe you need to change your product, you need to change your support, you need to change maybe your cost for that. So for instance, we know that the 3PLs are much more margin conscious than the actual the retail operator, because they have to operate within that margin kind of level. For that, you know, it has to make sense for the retailer. So you could very easily go out to the 3PL segment, not be prepared, and you know, you actually burn a lot. And particularly in the B2B, you have, you know, probably a small amount of targets that you're going after relative to like a B2C model. So, you know, having it a little bit right and at least thought out in some way, it's better than just blasting in there.
And is that identifying then the value of doing some strong customer discovery kind of work with a couple of trusted potential customers, Rory? Is that what you guys do? Do you go out and kind of suss them out and do your research with a couple of key potential customers or a couple of industry contacts?
I'd say when we've done our business model canvas, we'd set up a experiment board to prove or disprove our hypotheses, and then you're saying, look, if we, you know, go to 3PLs, we think that it has to be cheaper because of the margin impact. So then you go and ask that question to the first ones that you call and go, no, our assumption here is that this must be, you know, at this level of pricing, and then we kind of prove or try and prove or disprove. And you obviously try and rank the biggest challenges, like the biggest hypotheses that are unknown to you, which are the ones that are kind of, I suppose, idea killers, and kind of get them to the top and try and as quickly as possible get to the bottom of those.
I think, and that's identifying another area where the business model canvas is useful, is that at the moment when we do a business model canvas with a client company who comes in, and we throw up all these assumptions up on the business model canvas, but none of them are tested. Potentially very few of them are tested in a really early stage, and it's about going out and testing those hypotheses and deciding, then changing the plan based on the customer feedback. And that's a really important part of business modeling as a tool in general. So I'm going to bring you on to
I suppose Rosemary, just to kind of tidy up that section, we probably answered another question just came in. Did the BMC help to show different problems as you updated it, Rory?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's just I suppose it's a logical way of thinking. So you get in ideation when you start, you're probably trying to throw out all the ideas and get as many ideas as possible. But then when you start to flush them through, and even before you would actually apply the business model canvas, you can probably do we would have an opportunity register, and we would rank those to try and get the top ideas to push through the business model canvas, because some ideas are just not as good as other ideas, but in the ideation stage, to get as many out as possible, rank them, get the best ones, and then push the best ones through the business model canvas. And then some of them fall apart as you go, do you know what, we can't deliver that for that cost that we need, so you know what, we can't do that, let's look at something else. And yeah, it makes the kind of ideas become more realistic, I suppose.
Okay, brilliant. This is a big one at the moment, because the channels element is how the product gets from us to the customer, or what channels do our customers prefer, what are the most effective and efficient. So with channels dramatically changed, and with our communication to customers dramatically changed, this is probably one of the biggest challenges that companies are facing at the moment, because they can't physically access their customers. So the likes of Next, I see, are going back online. They weren't online for a few days, a couple of weeks. They're going back online now. Companies have to try and find other ways to communicate to their customers. So obviously every company in the world is trying to go online and have an online payments system. They're all trying to sort out their warehousing and logistics issues, because all the bricks and mortar elements are gone. And obviously Scurri has a role to play in that. But you guys also probably have your challenges around communicating to your customers and meeting and connecting with new customers who are in a state of crisis.
Yeah. We would do a traditional visit to a customer, so they're finished at this stage. So we would have had a business development team who would kind of contact a customer and then organize a meeting. We would go and visit them in person, because there's actually, we found over the years nothing like the personal touch. But you can't do that now. So you've got to kind of change the whole sales model in terms of, well, how do you do the remote remote demo? How do you get a sense of their warehouse if you've never been in it, to actually kind of understand how complex or how simple it actually is? And so you've actually got to think about these things. The other thing is certain brand, even online, certain kind of brands, so niche brands. Say for instance, we have climbing gear and stuff like that we supply to. There's just nothing happening in those categories. And then in other categories, medical and food and stuff like that, they are going gangbusters. So it's actually changing even segments within our core kind of market, to actually say what we push aside the niche kind of sporting goods at the moment and look and target kind of health or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And so we have another poll here. I'm going to ask Siobhan to throw that up now, around just trying to find out from the people who are watching today and involved today, can you currently communicate to your customers the way you always have? So Rory was giving the example that face-to-face meeting is gone, and trying to do those online, trying to have Zoom calls and online meetings and online sales calls where you don't get to see the white of people's eyes, or get to really assess their premises or their warehousing or their setup, is very tricky. So we just want to get a feel from people. Are you currently communicating to your customers the way you always have, or are you thinking about dramatically changing that?
While that's up, Rosemary, there's another question that has come in. Maybe we should keep it at the end, but it's an interesting one. What guidance would Rory offer in knowing when one's BMC is good enough to use with a small number of actual prospective customers?
Oh, that's
there's a $1 million question.
That's a really good one. Well, if it feels that it is good enough, I think that's what it is. You've got to go with your gut, and to a certain extent as well. So if you feel that it's logical, I think somebody needs to go on mute. I think if it's logical, and if you feel that it kind of makes sense, then you can actually kind of start to kind of run it through. You can also use some kind of I suppose rankings or ratings that are suitable for your business. Things like market attractiveness, doability. We call it doability. How easy is it to actually do? And then even management excitement. Like there could be something there that's really could be an opportunity, but is it dodgy, or does the management really want to do work in that area? And I think that's important, because the why is so important in business. So if people really get behind an idea and they like it, yeah. If people don't like the idea and it's where you're only kind of doing it for survival, that could be okay in the short term, but are you going to get the management and the team behind you to actually do it? That's really, really important.
Yeah, I think the point, Rory, as well, is that the BMC, it's never finished. It's constantly evolving and changing. So, as you said, you have to go with your gut. You're testing a hypothesis, and you're going out then to verify whether that's working or not. I think that's the point, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. All righty, we'll move on. Oh. So relationships-wise, and we're not going to spend too much time on that, but this is the how people want to be managed, how customers or clients want to be managed by you. So, and how you can create and capture value, because it's expensive to get that first customer, exceptionally expensive. So you don't want to lose them. So you want to retain and turn that into recurring revenue, because it's cost you so much to get that customer at the beginning. So it's all about identifying what way that customer wants to be managed by you. And certain companies, certain segments, certain individuals want to be managed differently. And it's about testing that again and going out and talking to those customers and working out how that relationship is built. Rory, you work on a recurring revenue basis with most of your customers. So how do you manage that ongoing relationship to ensure that they sign up year on year?
Yeah, I mean, we have a customer success department who build relationships with the customers on an individual basis, and that's much easier again when you visit. Now they don't the visits are key customers maybe once a quarter. Some customers only get a visit once a year, but it is important. And if the cycle breaks, because it takes the entire year to go visit everybody, and that. So this is one where temporary things I think customers understand that we're in a crisis at the moment. So, they actually accept that we can't visit them during this period. And actually, if we did visit them or tried to visit them, actually, you wouldn't be welcomed at all. So it's just, I suppose, some of the things are much more permanent here, and some of them can be kind of a temporary change as well. That's the important part of it.
And it is about reaching out and keeping the communication channels open to customers and not, I suppose, falling off a cliff, no matter how much level of crisis your company is in.
Yeah, it's you're replacing one with something else. You're looking at this and saying, how do we maintain the relationships, and how do we replace the visit with something else, and can we be more effective? That's exactly what you're doing. So this forces you to think about it.
Yeah. So the revenue streams then is obviously the revenue model. So how does a company make money from each segment of the market? And it could be different depending on what the offering is to each segment, or how it's structured for them. What are they paying, and how are they paying for it? And obviously this is an area that is under scrutiny a little bit at the moment around pricing. And have prices changed in the current environment, and based on cost, or on other macro issues that are going on outside of the company's control, where the pricing falls. So I'm going to go straight to the poll on this one, and see what you guys are saying about your pricing at the moment, Siobhan. So have you considered changing your prices during the crisis? Is what we'd love to find out. Are you reviewing your pricing structure? And obviously we can't find out what the rationale is behind it, but we just wanted to get a feel for, were people looking at changing their pricing up or down during this crisis? Okay, you've all probably polled. You did very quick. So the resources then are the capacities and capabilities within the company or outside the company, depending on whether you outsource or not, to deliver the value proposition. So it's identifying what you currently have internally and what you need to buy in or outsource. And what are the assets to make the model work? Is it people? Is it tech? Is it R&D? Is it a specific kind of facility? So what are the key resources in the industry? Now, at the moment, in the current crisis, those are rapidly changing all the time, because we can't have people where we want our people. and that is a major problem, and we can't have people in facilities where we otherwise would have had them. Has that impacted much on you, Rory, or were you a remotely structured company anyway? Were you ready for this?
We are based in Wexford, and our HQ, and we have found over the years that that is really important to be closer together. We just work better that way. However, we do have a number of people that work remotely, and we built the company to work remote, so we would be able to work remotely, because I suppose we believe in the cloud. So we sell cloud, so we believe in the cloud. So we don't own a server in the building. Everything is totally 100% cloud based. So we were able to walk out on a Friday, and on Monday morning, without anybody doing anything over the weekend, be ready to work on Monday from home. But it does bring a lot of other challenges, because if you haven't worked from home, everybody hasn't worked from home for ever. There's a lot of challenges in running a business that way. But that wasn't an issue for us. The biggest one in that area for us is we're in the middle of a funding round at the moment. So there has been changes to the people who are investing, because their financial situation has changed. We're lucky enough that our numbers are going really well, and we're in the right category. So that funding round is working really well for us. But it's it was just a bit more complicated, I suppose, because of the flux in the environment.
And I think that this gives me an opportunity to give a little broadcast to our next session, which is going to be on funding and cash flow, which is this day 2 weeks with Derek Lowry, and to discuss the issues that companies are having around funding and cash flow, and the plan for getting back up and running afterwards if the company has currently stalled. So I'll be sending you all out a little link to that for this day 2 weeks. But we have a poll there, just as our last poll, Siobhan, just what are the most important business resources to your business right now? Is it people, cash, future investment, or R&D? Let us know which are the two most important resources to your business in the current environment right now. Let me give you a second to do that. Okay, so number 7, we're nearly there. There's only 9. Number 7, we'll drop that poll there, Siobhan. There she is. What key activities are necessary?
Actually, Rory, just a question has popped in there, a very interesting one actually. Has Rory any tips he could share about pivoting businesses that have not always been online, and how to engage customers in this crisis? Which is a very interesting one that you mentioned next while ago, going back online. So what do you think of that, Rory?
Yeah, I mean, I think understanding online is important. So if you can get access to somebody who has done it, you're going to kind of shortcut. So whether that's a consultant, a friend, a colleague, a relation, or somebody who has actually worked in the online, it's a different world. There's different things you need to be thinking about. So rather than making all the mistakes that everybody makes, finding somebody that can actually help you, I think, especially if you're on speed, I think is really, really important. It's not dramatically complex in kind of as a model, but there's just a good bit of common sense and stuff that's built up over years, and getting that takes a while. So I'd advise finding somebody that knows what they're talking about, so you can shortcut.
Good call. And also there is good support from the Leos on the trading online voucher. You can get a second one of those. So definitely contact your local Leo who have business continuity vouchers and those trading online vouchers, which will definitely help you get up and running. And they have approved suppliers out there who've done that before. So it's worth getting involved in that. So number 7 on the canvas are the key activities. So what are the activities necessary to deliver the value proposition? What does your company physically do? What do you have to do to create the value proposition? And in the end of the day, most companies end up being sales and marketing companies. He loves when I say that. He wants to hit me over the head when I say that. But in the end of the day, that is the job. It is a sales and marketing job of whatever the actual value is. And it's delivering it all the way to the customer. So what activities are required to bring your piece of R&D or your idea all the way to the customer and start making money? And it's really important that those get costed out as we start to look at the last number 9, which is the cost structure. So all of the activities, the resources, the model, the marketing, the channels, all of the costs associated with the business need to be highlighted there in section 9. The partners, and Rory, you mentioned partners at the very beginning, and you know, identifying who your key partners and suppliers are, and knowing what activities and resources that they provide, and costing out those elements, and who do you need to survive, and who would be key partners for Scurri?
Yeah, well, our key, it's really key for us. So what we do is, you know, we take the complexity of integrating with, you know, your DPD or your Unpost or your Fastway or FedEx or whoever. So they are our partners. So they actually do the shipping. We kind of plug it into your online business. So they are our key partners. So, you know, we found this recently where, you know, we could try and get a new customer up and running, and they find that just because of the current situation that it's difficult to get an account now with Unpost or DPD or whoever because of the demand. So, you know, picking probably a partner that can actually get you online is probably key, rather than hoping to be with somebody that maybe just doesn't have capacity at the moment. So, yeah, it's key partners for us is, you know, for every business, but for us in particular, our business is run around helping carriers, making the access to them much easier for our customers.
Okay. So they are the 9 building blocks of the business model canvas. Now, Rory mentioned that 10 years ago when Scurri started out, I think we had it up on a brown paper up in the office, out in the industrial estate, up on the wall with loads of posters of different colours, and reams and reams of brown paper mapping as it was back then. And it is great to do this in person. It is something that is I remember a couple of years into Scurri going over to Duncannon and doing it against a wall in Duncannon in your first or second office over there. And it is a great thing to do in person and physically, and have that debate and discussion and throw it around among a number of people. And while we can't do that in person for companies at the moment, we can do it online. We can do a version of this over Zoom like we're doing this conversation today. So we have done it with a couple of companies over the last few weeks, and while it isn't quite the same, we're going to try and make it work. So if there are companies out there who fit into our criteria of innovative, scalable startups in the Southeast who'd like to look at this from a current perspective, from a crisis perspective, or just an overall plan of action for their concept or their idea, we'd be delighted to dig you out. So we'll have a couple of poll results, Siobhan, and see what people have said. So since the crisis started, have your team identified a customer segment? So 65% has said yes. That's really interesting. And it's great to see people, you know, planning and working through the canvas, even though they mightn't have known it as a tool. Excellent. And then the next one, Siobhan. Can you currently communicate to your customers the way you always have? And only 30% saying yes and 70% saying no. So it is about working down through the list of how you communicate and identifying what you're going to do in its place and putting in replacement planning. Have you considered changing your pricing? Yes, 40%, no, 60%. So that's interesting. We should have asked the next question being up or down, and that would have given us a better indication of what's going on. Thanks, Siobhan. And then the most important resources to your business right now, people, obviously, and them not being available possibly, cash, future investments in R&D. So it is about that's very much showing the current issue, people and cash, being the 2 key things that are going to help companies keep moving at the current time. Okay, that's cool. Thanks for that, everybody, and thanks for taking part in that. And have we any more questions coming in?
Yeah, we have. We've lots of questions coming in, Rosemary, and I'm amazed. We're pretty much bang on time. Well done. So just a question here: will the current crisis open opportunities for companies to outsource some activities and help reduce fixed costs for companies during this time?
I think it depends on your model.
Yeah, very much so, doesn't it? And I think that's where the business model kind of canvas can come in as a very powerful tool, is to sit down and analyze the business and see where those opportunities are.
Yeah, I think you're talking about cost structures there.
Yeah, big time. Another question is, do you manage the new canvas as a formal project with its own deliverables, timeframes, etc.? I don't think so. As I said, it's an ever-changing, ever-evolving model, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we do it formally with Ed. Maybe if you can just mute the thing.
Yeah.
We can do it formally with the team, as in, you know, big session with the entire team. But sometimes I just take out the canvas when, you know, there's a problem or an issue or an opportunity, and just kind of model it out there, and then taking 20 minutes to do it, and then just kind of consider the, you know, kind of consider the outcomes from it. So it doesn't have to be big and formal. It can be very quick and dirty in some ways.
Yeah, I think that, and it's making it that kind of a day-to-day tool rather than something that's too formal and that you look at once and you never look at again. It'd be great that one of the recommendations we have would be that it would be up there and in your office and you play with it. You know, that you have it set up in the office in big format, and you get to play with it and make the most out of it that way, rather than turning it into too heavy an ask, you know.
We certainly had it for many years and on the wall. We don't, you know, as the business matures, sometimes, you know, it doesn't change dramatically as quickly. So you may, just as a business matures, you may take it out less frequently, but certainly in times of change or in early stages, I think having it on the wall all the time is a good idea.
Just a couple of more questions, Rory. Very many B2C potential clients will emerge from this financially better off, but more cautious. How do we find them and communicate with them?
Depends again on entirely on your business model, I think. So for us, what we found is that we have a business development team, BDRs, and initially they found that it was difficult to get through for the first couple of weeks, but I think as things have settled down, a direct approach and a kind of friendly voice rather than just emails or, you know, kind of online seems to be working quite well for them. But that's our industry, our business, our segments. For somebody else, it could be entirely different. Maybe people are fed up with phone calls. They want to, how do you even get to people in some ways? Maybe they want to get reached out to online. So I think it just depends entirely on your own business, your segments and your markets you're after.
Okay. I think we answered the question, has COVID-19 affected your business in a negative or positive way? I think it's been kind of positive in some aspects, hasn't it?
Yeah, well, I think it has negative and positive, Aidan. So there are certain segments that have shut down, as I said, and then there are new segments that have opened up. I think we're lucky, and it's just pure luck that we're in the business segment we're in online. So in this instance, in this external, you know, impact, it's just luck for us, and we're lucky to be in the right place at the right time. So overall, it's good for us, but there are challenges within there.
Okay. And the very last question, Rory, can you explain more about your funding situation and any advice you have on raising funds in the current climate? I suppose the latter part of that question will be.
So raising funds
In the current climate.
Yeah. Maybe if you just mute Aidan, I keep hearing you back. So just raising funds in the current climate is, I started that a long time ago, not in the current climate. So I suppose the answer on raising funds is, should be raising funds way before you need them. I suppose in this climate, there's, in fairness to the government, there's a number of different areas that you can actually apply for different funds, so emergency funds, etc. And I'd expect that everybody would have looked at those now. I think they're quite decent there at the moment in terms of there's opportunities to raise funds where you probably wouldn't have had one. And definitely we're just lucky. Again, we're in the right segment. If I had a business which was booking hotel rooms, airline flights, booking holidays or something like that, I think it would find it difficult to raise funding in the current environment, because we happen to be in the online segment. There's still money out there, and if you're in the right area, investors still have money to invest, and they're just looking for areas at the moment that there's less risk, which they're always looking for the least amount of risk, most return. So it's luck. I would give it that. We've done anything fantastic ourselves. We've just been doing what we've been doing for years, and it's luck at this point.
Okay, thanks very much, Rory. I think we'll wind it up there. Just a few thank yous. Just thanks to everybody for logging in this morning. We know time is precious and people have issues to deal with and all the rest, but thank you for logging in. Rory, thank you so much for your time and insights this morning. As I said, you're a very practical example of the use and the ongoing use of the canvas and as a practical tool. I want to thank the team here in the BIC, Siobhan, Rosemary, Carol and Denise for setting up the webinar and the work they put in doing that. And Rosemary, can you move on the slide there? We're just looking forward to seeing you at our next seminars. So as I said, today is the first in a series, an ongoing series. So the next one is in 2 weeks' time, all to do with raising funds, managing cash flow during the crisis, and maybe how to exit the crisis as well, how to position your business to exit and successfully overcome the crisis. 2 weeks after that, we have, that's with Derek Lowry of Amiga Consultants, and we'll also have Niall McAvoy from the High Potential Startup Unit in Enterprise Ireland on that in that webinar as well, outlining the funds and supports they have available currently. 2 weeks after that, we have Brendan O'Hara of Untapped, who has been remote working for many, many years, and he's going to give some insights into remote and flexible working as well. And beyond just the practical and the tools, I suppose, more in the mindfulness side of things and how to look after yourself remotely. And then on May 27th, we have a focus on export markets and how to handle culture and trust during and after the crisis, and that's with Sharon DeMel of the Intercultural Coach. So that's it, folks. We were 5 minutes over, so not too bad. Thanks to everyone for logging on, and we'll see you soon. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rory.
Thanks, everybody.
Cheers.